I'm Dawn, and I'm a gratefully recovering compulsive overeater. And I, like you all, weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the gray sheet. Write those meals down, call them into my sponsor or another qualified member of this fellowship, and don't eat in between those meals, no matter what. And abstinence is the most important thing in my life, without exception. Thank you so much, Laura. A, for your prompting, and B, for your tolerance. My internet connection's all over the place today, where we just had fiber fitted, so it's a bit of a nightmare. But anyway, thank you for the poke on my phone at the same. Like, oh God, I'm freaking out in the background. Nothing for serenity like that. And that would have caused me to eat before. So I'll kind of tell my story, but I'll try to do it in a way that makes sense for now, not just how I came in and how I came into the fellowship. So the war stories are always interesting. I was almost 200 kilos, 400 pounds when I was 28 years old, and I was dying. And by the grace of God, when I was 29, I came into recovery in another fellowship, and I discovered OA when I was 30 years old. Thank God for that fellowship. And as a result of OA, I understood the 12 steps. I understood about food, but I didn't know what the heck to do about it, because no matter what they told me about 3 meals a day, I didn't understand why mine was 10 times bigger than everybody else's. So it was a beautiful way of learning about the program, but not about what worked for my body. Before that time, I'd used food to deal with every feeling, every emotion. It was my best friend growing up. Yeah, so how does somebody get to 400 pounds? Well, it's relatively simple. I was 29 stone for people in the UK, just to kind of let you know. Um, I ate when I was sad, I ate when I was happy, I ate when I was bored, I ate when I was cold, I ate when the weather was good, when the weather was bad. My mom taught me to diet from the time I was 9 years old, and to hate my body from the time I was born, really, because she hated hers. I was her diet buddy. She did the best she could, because she was told by the world that it wasn't okay to have curves or be shaped any different. So diets helped her to get bigger and bigger and bigger, but no one ever got as big as me. Food got me attention in a family where there was cancer and death. Food shielded me from men in a world that was really scary with that. Food let me opt out of dating and life. And so I always say now, and I've had a real epiphany around this, is that food was perfectly made to wake me up to the fact of my thinking. And so this was my addiction. Other people might have alcohol, other people might have drugs, other people might have work. For me, food was the perfect vehicle to wake me up to the dysfunction in the way that I dealt with life. So lo and behold, came across OA. I'll tell you about that, because that's always a really beautiful story. And I came in and I very quickly lost 100 pounds. Well, 100 pounds when you're 398 pounds means I was still really, really heavy. And I was still suffering from massive mobility problems. When you're really, really large, you have unique problems. You have reach problems. You can't reach, you can't clean. You can't sit in airplanes without seatbelt extenders. You can't climb up ladders without them breaking. You can't breathe. I had high blood pressure. I had joint problems, arthritis. I had everything. So I came into OA, and I unfortunately found out that if I threw myself into service, I could do it. So I did everything in OA. I was in that fellowship, and it was such a miracle. I learned to stop eating. I learned to eat 3 meals a day. It wasn't a continual binge, because my life was one binge. I learned to stop eating sugar, which was a miracle in that fellowship. And since I joined that fellowship, I really haven't touched it. So that's a long time without sugar. But it didn't teach me how to eat. It didn't deal with the underlying malady that I have, which is when I take in grains or sugar, or as my beautiful sponsor says, anything that alcohol is made out of, it creates a craving in my body. But I also have another unique thing that I always think is unique to GreySheeters, is my eyes are broken. Yeah. So in helpful diet plans would say, use your hand to figure out. Now I have really big hands, right? So I'm very tall. I'm almost 6 foot tall. So having like a bit of protein the size of my hand was never big enough, because it was always like the size of a plate. So I couldn't, on 3 meals a day, get to a normal body size. I just couldn't because I was just eating a lot for 3 times a day. So it was controlled mini binges. That's what I always say. So I threw myself into service. I threw myself into meetings. I got into lots of other fellowships. I learned about the 12 steps. I arrested a lot of other compulsions. Thank you, Tori. And then in about 2011, I got pregnant with my daughter, and it was a miracle. And I picked up for the first time in my life sugar again. And again, I talk about this because it was incredible. Because within about the 9-month pregnancy and less than 6 months, I put on 75 pounds. So I was back up to 350 pounds again. So only 40 pounds away from my heaviest weight. Could barely walk. I could barely move. And I remember listening to my OA sponsor saying, well, why just can't you just figure this out? You know, you did it before, but it wasn't working. And so I heard about something, and I don't actually remember. It's really weird with GreySheet. I don't remember how I heard about it. I just came across it when I was desperate. And someone said, oh, have you heard of GreySheet? And I was told the people that do GreySheet are crazy. And they were all thin and all really, really nuts. And so I was like, oh God, I can't do that. And then I saw a picture of myself with my daughter, and I was enormous. And I was like, she is going to have that mom at the school gate. She is going to be so ashamed of me, just like I struggled with my own mother. And so that was it. So I said, I'm willing to try anything. So I went on the GreyNet. If you guys remember the GreyNet, that was when it was on Yahoo groups. And I wrote a little note, and I said, okay, I just want to sponsor. And this lovely woman from Israel sent me, I'd never spoken to anybody from Israel, sent me a message and said, yes, I'm willing to call me tomorrow exactly at 6 in the morning. I was like, oh my God, all these rules. And you're going to commit your next 3 meals to me, and I'm going to teach you how to eat. And so back then she sent me by mail a copy of the GreySheet. I actually have the original one with her handwriting on it. She taught me how to eat. At the time I was in England, so it was like, was it grams, was it ounces? We eventually tried grams for a while, and then I went to ounces because it's just easier, because I'm American originally. And she taught me, and I stayed with that sponsor for a very, very long time, actually until I went out again, and I'll explain that story. So I had a gift of abstinence. It took me about 6 months to get abstinent the first time. I was really screwing around with my food, to be completely honest with you. It's very scary trying to get to those 90 days. I got to 90 days about 3 times and then got put back to day 1. So I was really pissed, but I'm very good at taking my will back. And so, but this person stayed with me, and I was doing a lot of meetings. You know, I was doing 3 meetings a week. I was very lucky to live by London. At the time I was living in Surrey. So I was able to go to the London meeting every week, and I carried my baby with me. So my little girl grew up in the room. She went to her first GreySheet meeting at 9 months old, and she went with me every single day. And every single time I went, so I was going at least 2 to 3 times a month, going up from Woking, which is where I lived in Surrey, up to London, which is about 45 minutes altogether. But it was nothing for my abstinence. And those people in that room in that London meeting saved my life, including one that actually passed this week. She passed away on the 2nd. Prisha was a part of my first ever meeting and a part of my recovery for the entire time until about 6 months ago, when she got sick. So we spoke for all of those years, even when I was out of the room. And I just want to acknowledge her and her soul for what she did for me. So I'll share about the journey. I got to the meetings and I just did them every week. I just did what I was told, right? Finding abstinence was really hard. So anybody who's new, you know, I had that serious withdrawal. I had insomnia. I had the shakes. I was cold all the time. I was worse than drug and alcohol withdrawal. It was awful. So when I finally did get abstinent, and I maintained that abstinence until beginning of 2020. And I want to share about that because I want to share about what took me out and what brought me back in again. So I was in an abusive relationship during lockdown with somebody who was controlling my food. And I couldn't get away. And my self-confidence was gone. And he was telling me what I was doing was crazy. But anyway, so I put my relationship in front of my food. And it resulted in a relapse that took me until June of this year, a little bit before June of this year, to finally come back from. Now I came back in, I was always around the rooms. I kept going to meetings. I was always kind of on the GreyNet, paying attention and just trying to stay in the background. I tried to get a sponsor. I went to someone else because I was terrified of going back to my original sponsor because I was so afraid I'd get rejected. But relapse is a really dark time for me. Now, I never got back up to 400 pounds again. By the grace of God, I have no idea why. But I put on about 60 to 70 pounds of that weight that I had taken away. And it was 2 pounds a week, every week, pretty much. 2 pounds a month sometimes. My hormones were all over the place. My craziness came back in spades. I was completely unstable. Other things, thank you, Doreen, came into my life. Thank you very much. And it was just bonkers. I picked up alcohol. I mean, I was just starting to lose it toward the end. And all of a sudden, I'd been going along to the Sunday Israel meeting, which is my home group. And someone shared, and it was my original sponsor. And she shared and she said something that struck me to the soul, which I repeat now, which is I was taught in AA that we avoid foods that alcohol is made out of. Now, I live in Devon in the UK. We make alcohol out of apples here. I had no idea. And so what I was drinking, 1 to 2, and pardon me for mentioning food, 1 to 2 of those fruit made drinks a week. And I was finding myself eating more and more and more of them. I suddenly started to realize that there was something wrong. And I listened and it took me 3 days from that day to call her up on the phone and go, I don't know if you'd consider it, but I'm desperate. I was like, I can see myself getting back up to 400 pounds again. I was 243 at the time around. And I've been out of the rooms for a while. And so in June the 2nd, 2023, I finally got permission from that sponsor and I've worked with her ever since. And so I got abstinent and I got my 90 days. And I was on holiday in the US when I got my 90 days. Oh my God, it was such a miracle being abstinent on vacation. I was on a month holiday. I had my scale with me. I was calling into people. But America, I could do abstinent. I can't do America not abstinent because the food there is bonkers for me personally. I cannot deal with the sugar. I can't deal with the volume. And I just eat until I explode. So it was so lovely to be abstinent on holiday in Canada and the US. And then when I came back at the end of August, early September, I had my 90 days. And the first thing I did was I said, I'm available for sponsoring because I know that sponsoring really, really helps. And now I'm doing more service on my meeting and I'm feeling more comfortable coming away from the edges because the big thing that changed for me, and I just want to talk about the power and gift of relapse. And I think this is something a lot of people don't talk, especially newcomers, who it scares the living crap out of people, is that relapse taught me to be humble. It taught me to really realize how important 3 weighed and measured meals a day are. It taught me to realize how sacred these rooms are and the support that we get from each other. It taught me how nutritious and beautiful that our food is. And it taught me what comes first. And so when my new partner, who I've been with for about a year now, I was scared to be abstinent with him. When I talked to him about what I do with my food, my new partner's built like a pencil. He can't eat anything because he's got severe gastrointestinal problems. He has IBS and everything else like that. So he has no issue with me not eating very much or me eating a lot because he doesn't care. Because for him, his stomach doesn't work. So it's absolutely beautiful to have someone who just doesn't even care and just sees me for who I am and sees how calm I am. And the gift of relapse for me and the gift of Grey Sheet coming back to this program is it's taught me not to take it for granted, to not take for granted the beauty of our food, the holding grace of our fellowship, and the absolute miracle that we actually have a piece of paper that solves the problem I've wanted to have my entire life, which is what do I eat? How much do I eat? When do I eat? And what do I avoid? It takes away all decision from me. And it's a real miracle. So I am in the early stages of abstinence once again. I have 120 days now. I am just listening and I'm waiting. And I'm listening and I'm waiting. And it's a little over 120 days, 120 days from the June 2nd. But I just wanted to say to Laura and to all of you, if you're newcomers, the miracles really do happen. I mean, if you want to know numbers, right? Since I came in, I've lost, I don't know, maybe let's see, I'm 217 now, down from 243, whatever that means. 15 stone something. Um, my eventual goal weight, because of the way that I end up staying, will probably be about 185, but I'm not worried about it. I'm also perimenopausal, stroke menopausal. My hormones are all over the place. So I used to lose lots of weight really quickly. Now I'm lucky to lose a pound a month, but don't care because I've got sanity. And even though I probably don't sound it, that is a miracle because I was crazy. So yeah, I'm going to say thank you to Doreen and thank you to the meeting. And I'm abstinent and grateful today. And it is by the grace of God. Thank you.